each year, as time progresses, we lose more and more of the information that we have. Whether we're talking about prehistoric cultures that were 11,000 years ago or 9,000 years ago, or whether we're talking about events that were even as recent as 50 years ago, pieces have disappeared. So we have to take these opportunities really to document as much as we possibly can, because we're going to lose more just with the passage of time.
The rolling hills and Broad Creek valleys along the tributaries of the Knife River in western North Dakota contain some of the most spectacular archaeological remains in North America. At quarry sites dotting the hill slopes, a dark brown translucent stone known as Knife River flint was dug from the ground and was worked into spear points, scissors, and ovens. The story of the ancient peoples who lived in this region is being revealed, bit by bit, primarily at locations where modern development intersects long-forgotten archaeological sites. One such location is at Lake Ilo, the central feature of the Lake Ilo National Wildlife Refuge, which is managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. A complex, multi-year program of scientific study is now underway at the Lake Ilo National Wildlife Refuge. When the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service conducted a safety study of the 50-year-old Lake Ilo Dam, a deficiency was discovered, and a 7-foot notch was cut in the dam to lower the lake level. This abrupt lowering of the lake level starkly revealed for the first time numerous archaeological sites on the exposed lakebed surface. Shortly after this discovery, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service began a long-term program of archaeological and historical investigation.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, along with other federal agencies, is responsible for taking care of cultural resource properties. Anytime we have a construction project, we need to find these and figure out what to do with them. Basically, we have a three-pronged project. First is inventory, second is evaluation, and the third one is mitigation of the adverse effects if necessary. The inventory phase of this project is finding the sites. Further, consisted of evaluative tests to find out whether the sites out here were eligible for nomination to the National Register. The mitigation of archaeological usually consists of a data recovery program. This is what we're doing out here right now. We have a crew that's collecting very, very minute, detailed information.
Among the many artifacts, objective points found during archaeological inventory at Lake Ilo, the most spectacular and intriguing was a fragment of a fluted spear point. This was a Folsom point, made about 11,000 years ago, just after the peopling of the Americas. Who made Folsom spear points remain shrouded in mystery. You know that Folsom peoples were big game hunters who preyed on an extinct bison substantialer than the modern buffalo.
This site is really, in terms of the diversity of activities represented here. Most Folsom sites are rather specific in terms of what the people were doing. They're either killing bison, butchering the animals nearby, or perhaps it's a camp location. In this spot here, we have flint quarry activities, people digging pits, digging holes in the ground over flint cobbles. They're manufacturing finished tools from those flint cobbles. They are refitting their hunting equipment, replacing broken spear points, and they're conducting other camp activities, working hides, fabricating probably other kinds of wooden implements that we don't have any real idea about. But we know there's a tremendous range of things going on here, and this is unique in a Folsom location.
As with all complex archaeological studies, a clear understanding of site geology is a highly important part of the investigations.
The reason a geologist is brought onto a project like this is because we have specialized training in the study of soil sediment. And in particular, we focus on the history, the geologic history, or the physical, environmental history of this site and how it evolved through time. Okay, in this long trench that we've dug exposes this buried soil that we call the Leonard Paleosol. It dates between 9,000 and 10,000 years ago. The soil itself represents the land surface at the time that Folsom and other Paleo-Indian peoples would have occupied this site.
Yeah, we've chosen to dig in this part of the site because our backhoe trenches and early test excavations have showed that this part of the site contains quite a few artifacts, as many as 500 artifacts in every 5-centimeter level, and that these deposits of artifacts extend quite deep, as much as 1.5 meters or about 5 feet below the surface. And we placed an excavation right here, and in that unit, 15 centimeters below the surface, we discovered a Folsom point that had been broken and manufactured, had been broken when one of the flutes had been taken off. And because of that important discovery, we decided to expand our excavations into this 3 by 3 meter block.
State-of-the-art surveying equipment is used to plot the location of artifacts of particular interest, such as flint core, a bone fragment, a spear point, or a flake of unusual raw material. This instrument is called a total station. It is a laser transit driven by software programs in the attached handheld computer. Artifact plots are downloaded from the field computer into a desktop computer in the lab for further analysis. Paper records are very important and are used for describing every phase of the excavation and for tracking all excavated samples. Each plotted artifact and each settlement from each excavation square is assigned an individual catalog number. These catalog numbers are keyed to information about location within the site. Wheelbarrow loads of excavated settlement are tagged with catalog information as they go to the water screens for washing. The water screens capture many hundreds of flakes and other kind of materials. These are in addition to the individual artifacts which were discovered and plotted during excavation. All of these materials must be added together in the archaeological lab, where the artifacts are studied in detail, classified, and interpreted. This is where the information about the site is brought to bear on the question posed in the research design, which guides all of the work at the site. Study of the artifacts begins size grading of the samples from excavation. This aggregate shaker is used to separate the artifacts in size classes, ranging from greater than 1 inch in diameter to those less than 1/8 inch in size. Size grading speeds the sorting process, which follows, and also organizes the collection for certain specialized uses. Samples are carefully sorted by lab workers into material categories, such as chipped stone flaking debris, stone tools, cores, bone, fire-cracked rock, natural, and other natural rocks and gravels. Sorting of larger specimens proceeds rapidly. Each piece is carefully inspected to see if it retains evidence of flaking or use as a simple X tool. Sorting of smaller size material is more time-consuming, but worth the effort. Detailed bits of information about activities at the site are brought to light. Many of the covered stone tools are simply the unusable byproduct of the flint flaking, which is a common activity at the site. This includes cores, or the nucleus of the flint cobble from which the usable flakes were struck. It also includes many fragments of bifaces, or flaked on pieces that were broken or discarded during the manufacturing process. The most abundant fact at the site is chipped stone flaking debris. These are chips and fragments produced during core reduction, tool production, and during tool sharpening. Some of these minute flakes may provide the best evidence for use and sharpening of a scraper or a butchering tool. Frequently, the tool or core is not recovered during excavation. This channel flake or fluting flake, for example, is the only evidence recovered so far from the successful manufacture of one particular Folsom point. The spear point was either carried away from the site or still lies in some unexcavated area. Special techniques are used to study flaking debris. Modern flint knapping experiments are used to produce controlled flake samples, manufactured by known techniques and useful for comparative study. The experiments are designed to replicate flaking tasks of cores, bifaces, and other tools at the Lake Ilo site. Larger flakes are usually studied for attributes useful for interpretation. The lower flake is an experimental flake struck from a biface, or a partially finished spear point. The lighter colored is an archaeological flake. Its close similarity in size and shape to the experimental tells us too is a thinning flake. Individual tools are subjected to more intensive study. Finished implements are examined under a microscope to detect wear patterns on used edges. From this wear, the archaeologist can determine more precisely how the tool was used and can more accurately reconstruct activities at the site.
Typically, archaeologists have been very interested in studying especially the projectile points, these very finely crafted spear points, which are they're really works of art. The people that made them were masters of their medium. At Lake Ilo, a single Folsom point was probably made from a single cobble of Knife River flint. A suitable cobble was selected. It was bifacially edged and then it was flaked with bifacial thinning to produce a preform. This was further flaked into a smaller preform which resembled the final spear point. This final preform then was flaked with very bold pressure flaking. It was shaped very carefully, and then the basal edge of this was shaped all projection where the force would be applied for the flute removal. We're not sure whether the flute was removed with percussion or pressure, but force was applied, the flute was removed from one face, then this preform was turned over, the opposite face flaked, and the flute was from that face. Successful, then the finished point was shaped with very detailed pressure work, the edges were ground, and it was put in the haft for use as a spear point. I'll illustrate here by matching a flute flake or channel flake with a preform. The process is a tremendously standardized flaking procedure. The artifacts are almost as if they were poured from a mold, they're so similar. And I can illustrate this by holding together some preforms, all of which during manufacture. There was a very high failure rate during the fluting process. At Lake Ilo, 60% of the Folsom points recovered were broken during manufacture. Archaeologists face the question of why Folsom people fluted their projectile points at all. It's not a functional necessity. I think the reasons are bound up in something that's ritual and spiritual, perhaps something that involved preparation for the big game hunt. Even though Lake Ilo lies in an area extremely rich in Knife River flint, there are a surprising number of artifacts which are not made of this stone. There's Rainy Butte silicified wood, a distinctive stone at a location about 70 miles south of Lake Ilo, and other silicified woods, agates, chalcedonies, and other types of stones. These artifacts pose an unanswered question of how these materials actually reached the site. Was it by contact with other Folsom people? Was it by actual movement of Lake Ilo peoples to other locations?
Many other specialized studies go into the final interpretive report on the Lake Ilo site. A project technical illustrator renders a scale drawing of one of the excavated Folsom spear points. With the illustrator adds detail about every flake scar and subtle feature of the artifact. This lends depth perspective to the drawing, bringing it to life on paper. State-of-the-art computerization is essential. All the minute bits of information collected by each field worker, and analyst are compiled in several large databases. Seen patterns are then in these data sets by powerful statistical programs. Computer programs produce site maps, overlays, and distributional plots which are used as figures in the project reports. As this phase of the project nears completion, exact casts or epoxy replicas of important artifacts are made by yet another specialist. These are used for study by other archaeologists and for museum displays. Lake Ilo is very unique in that regard. There are very few other sites that have this kind of complete record. The power of this is that we can bring together, or we can create really in one location, the full story of a whole series of technological operations, a whole segment of these people's behavior, which previously we couldn't put together without bringing together information from different sites and having to guess about how that fitted. Here we see it all fitting in one place. While prehistoric archaeology has received much of the attention at Lake Ilo, significant historic sites are also under study. One of the Lake Ilo Dam itself. Construction of the dam occurred as a Depression-era federal work completed in 1939. This structure are being offset or mitigated through an intensive program of historical and archival research. This research will record the construction history of the dam and clarify the impact that the dam and refuge had on surrounding communities.
One of the most important things about this is that the 30s era, the Depression era, and the programs that grew out of that in conservation, Works Progress Administration, were really important to the country. They built schools, courthouses, roads, and what we're seeing is that this infrastructure is growing old. It's beginning to crumble, and bit by bit we're losing all of these. I think that it's important that while we still have some remnant of this, to take advantage of it, to record it till we can.
Archaeological research at Lake Ilo is being used to save and understand information once nearly lost, which spans a period of more than 1 century. Each person who seeks out this information may see it in a slight way. The reward might simply be a new sense of wonder about the vitality and variety within the many cultures who have come before. This awareness will extend from the students and scholars who help collect this information to the futures to the Ilo National Wildlife Refuge.
Take it, and that's why I am dressed like this in my full rain gear, because you need to stay warm, you need to keep on going, and we have a certain percentage of dirt we need to move, and so we just, if it's raining or if it's, well, snow, we can't work in the snow, but if it's raining, we still have to work out here. If it's windy and cold, we still have to do our job. That's what we need to do. I like it a lot. This is my first actual excavation job. Really enjoy it. I was on a field school, and I know this is what I want to do. So I really enjoy it a lot.